So our progress report says we are at stage 10, paragraph page 875. 875. Okay, and our last headword was, let me check, spin dryer, newer type of lesson. Okay, so let's start with our revision. Ready?
I'm ready.
Here we go. Do people normally become a little deaf in their old age? Do people normally become a little deaf in their old age? Yes, people
Yes,
normally become
people normally
a little
become
deaf
a little
in
deaf
their old age.
in their old age.
Wait, in road accidents, who or what do you think is to blame more than anything else? In road accidents, who or what do you think is to blame more than anything else? In road accidents,
In road
I
accidents,
think
I think a driver
is to blame more
is to
than
blame
anything else.
more more than anything else.
Where you describe a tennis court. Describe a tennis court, please. A tennis court
A
is a
tennis
flat,
court is a flat,
rectangular piece of ground.
r-
Rectangular
rectangular
piece of ground
piece of ground
with white lines painted
with
on
white
it
line
and a net.
on it.
One more. A tennis court
A tennis
is
court
a flat,
is a flat,
rectangular piece of ground
rectangular piece of ground
with white lines
with white lines
painted on it
painted on it,
and a net stretched
and net stretch
across the middle
across the
from
middle
one side to the other.
from one side to the other.
Very good. What's the contrary of a wild animal? What's the contrary of a wild animal? The contrary
The
of a
contrary
wild animal
of a wild
is
animal
a tame animal.
is tame animal.
Very good. What do you use for making candles? What do we use for making candles? We use wax
We use wax
for making candle.
for making candle.
Very good. What do we call the sides of a river? What do we call the sides of a river? We call the sides
We
of a
call the
river
side of the river
the banks.
the banks.
Very good. Okay, can we use the expression at last for negative outcomes? Can we use the expression at last for negative outcomes? No, we can't
No,
use
we can't
the
use
expression at
the,
last
the expression addressed
for negative outcomes.
for negative outcomes.
What do we use instead? What do we use instead? We use in
We
the
use
end instead.
in the end instead.
Make a sentence using the word at last. Make a sentence using the word at last, please. After searching all day,
After searching all
at
day,
last, we
at last
found the keys.
we found the keys.
Make a sentence with the words in the end. Make a sentence with the word in the end, please. We search all day,
We searched all
but
day,
in the end,
but in
we
the end,
realized
we realized
we were never going
we were never
to
going
find the keys.
to find the keys.
We're at about how many pages of this book are there left for us to study? About how many pages of this book are there left for us to study? There are about
There are about
60 pages of this book.
si- 60 pages of the books.
Uh, 60 pages of this book
60 pages of this book
left for us to study.
left left us for study.
Left for us
Left for us
to study.
to to study.
Very good. What would I mean if I said he can't spare the money to buy himself a new suit? What would I mean if I said he can't spare the money to buy himself a new suit? If you said
If
he
you
can't
said
spare the money
he can't spare the
to buy
money
himself a new
to buy
suit,
himself
a new suit,
a new suit,
you'd mean that
you'd mean that
he has some money
he has some
but
money
needs to use it
but need use it
for other things
or other things
and has none available
and has not available
to buy himself a new suit.
to buy himself a new suit.
Very good. What do you do in your spare time? What do you do in your spare time? In my spare time,
In my spare time,
I
I listen to music.
listen to music. Very good. Okay, next. Why do we carry a spare wheel in a car? Why do we carry a spare wheel in a car? We carry a
We
spare
carry
wheel in a car.
spare in the car.
We carry a
We
spare
carry
wheel
a spare
in a
wheel
car so
in
that
the car so
if we
that
get a puncture,
if we get a puncture,
we can change the
we can
wheel
change
immediately.
the wheel immediately.
What do we mean by a spare room in a house? What do we mean by a spare room in a house? By a spare room in a
By a
house,
spare room in the
we
house,
mean an extra
we
room
mean an extra room
which we keep empty
which we keep
for
empty
guests.
for guests.
Very good. What equipment would you need if you wanted to paint your bedroom a different color? What equipment would you need if you wanted to paint your bedroom a different color? The equipment I need
The equipment I need
if I wanted to paint
if I wanted
my
to
bedroom
paint
a different
my
color
bedroom a different color
would be brushes,
would be brushes,
paint, a ladder,
paint, a
etc.
leather, etc.
Very good. Can the motion of a car or boat make people, especially children, feel sick? Can the motion of a car or boat make people, especially children, feel sick? Yes. The motion
Yes,
of a car
motion of
or
a
boat
car
can make
or boat
people,
can make people,
especially children,
especially
feel
children,
sick.
feel sick.
Very good. What does someone mean if they say, I feel such a fool? What does someone mean if they say, I feel such a fool? If someone says,
If when someone says,
I feel such a fool,
I feel such a
they
fool,
mean that
they
they
mean
feel
that
like an idiot.
they they feel like
They
feel
feel
like
like
they feel like
an idiot
an idiot
because they have done
because they have done
something stupid.
something stupid.
Have you ever been fooled by anyone? Have you ever been fooled by anyone? Yes or no?
Yes,
I've been fooled
I've been fooled
by someone.
by someone
Very good. Give me an example of the words owing to. Give me an example of the words owing to, please. Owing to the lack
owing to the rat
of ticket sales,
of ticket
the
stale.
concert has been
The
cancelled.
concert has been cancelled.
Very good. What happens when we pour too much water into a glass? What happens when we pour too much water into a glass? When we pour
When we
too
pour
much water
too much water
into a glass,
into a glass,
some of the water
some of the water
spills over the
spills
edge
over
of the
the
glass.
edge of the glass.
What does it mean? There's no use crying over spilled milk. What does it mean? There's no use crying over spilled milk. There's no use
There's no use
crying over spilled
crying
milk.
over spilled
Means that
milk,
there's
means
no
that
point
there's no
getting
point
upset
getting upset
when something goes wrong
when something goes wrong.
if we cannot do if we cannot do
If we cannot do
anything to change
anything to
what
change
has happened.
what has happened.
Very good. When a person leaves a job, is it quite common for them to stay in contact with their former colleagues? When a person leaves a job, is it quite common for them to stay in contact with their colleagues? Yes. When a
Yes,
person leaves a job,
when a person when a person leave a job at
it's
job,
it's quite common
it's a quite
for
common
them to stay
for them to stay
in contact with
in
their
contact
former colleagues.
with the former colleagues.
Very good. What do we mean when we say Beethoven and Tolstoy were both great men? The former was German, whereas the latter was Russian. What do we mean when we say Beethoven and Tolstoy were both great men? The former was German, whereas the latter was Russian. When we say
When we say
Beethoven and
Beethoven
Tolstoy
and
were
Tolstoy
both great men,
were both
great
great
men,
men,
the former
great
was
men,
German,
former the German,
the former was
the former
German,
was German,
whereas the latter
whereas
was
the
Russian.
red was Russian.
We mean the first
Which means
mentioned
the first mentioned
was German,
was German,
whereas the second
where,
mentioned
whereas the second
was
mentioned
Russian.
was Russian.
Very good. When an argument arises, do you agree it's sometimes better to back out of it before it gets too heated? When an argument arises, do you agree it's sometimes better to back out of it before it gets too heated? Yes or no?
Yes.
When an argument
When
arises.
I when I argument arises,
When an argument
when an argument
arises, I
arises,
agree it's
I
sometimes
agree. It's
better
sometimes
to back out
better
of it
back out of it
before it gets
before it gets
too heated.
too heated.
Why is it important to back up files on a computer? Why is it important to back up files on a computer? It's important
It's
to back
important
up files
to back up files
on a computer
on a computer
so that the
so that
files are not
the
lost
files are not
if
lost.
the computer stops
If the
working.
if the computer stops working.
Very good. Have you ever backed up a friend in an argument even though you know they were wrong? Have you ever backed up a friend in an argument even though you know they were wrong? Yes or no?
Yes,
I back up a friend
I back up a friend
in an argument
in an argument,
even though I
even
know
though I
they
know
were wrong.
they were wrong.
Very good. Does an artist model have to stay in one position for a long period without making any movements? Does an artist model have to stay in one position for a long period without making any movements? Yes. An
Yes,
artist model
an artist model
have to stay
have to
in
stay
one position
in one
for a
position
long period
for a long period
without making any movements.
without me without making any more movements.
Very good. What do we say when someone sneezes? What do we say when someone sneezes? We say bless you.
We say bless you
When someone sneezes.
when someone sneezes.
Which would you rather be blessed with, health or wealth? Which would you rather be blessed with, health or wealth? I'd rather be blessed
I'd
with.
rather be blessed with health.
Very good. As at the train station, how can we check what time a train is due to depart and which platform it will depart from? At a train station, how can we check what time a train is due to depart and which platform it will depart from? At a train station,
At the train
we
station,
can check what
we
time
can check
a
what time
train is due to
a train
depart
is due to depart
and which platform
and which
it will
platform it will depart
depart
from
from by looking
by
at the
looking
departure board.
at the departure board.
At an airport, how long before departure are people advised to check in? At an airport, how long before departure are people advised to check in? At an airport,
At an
people
airport,
are advised
people are advised
to check in
to check in 2 hours
before departure.
before departure.
What happens if I bit hard on my pen? What happens if I bit hard on my pen? If you bit hard,
I-
if you bit hard on your pen,
Hello,
okay, can you hear me? Hello?
hello.
Okay, one
Okay.
more. If
So
you bit hard
if you bit
on
hard
your pen,
on your pen,
you'd crack it.
you'd crack it.
Very good. What can cause cracks in walls and ceilings? What can cause cracks in walls and ceilings? Age,
Age,
dampness,
dampness,
dryness,
dryness,
or bad workmanship,
or or bad workmanship,
or bad workmanship
or bad workmanship
can cause cracks
can cause cracks.
in walls and ceilings.
It and it most ceilings
In walls and
in
ceilings.
wall and ceilings.
Very good. What does the verb to spin mean? What does the verb to spin mean? The verb to
The
spin
verb
means
to spin
to
means
turn around and round
to turn around and
very
around
quickly
very
or
quickly
make something
or make something
turn round and round very
to
quickly.
round and round very quickly.
What are the three forms of spin? What are the three forms of spin? The three forms of
The three
spin.
form. of
Our spin, spun,
a
spun.
span.
What's a spin dryer? What's a spin dryer? A spin dryer
A spin
is a
dryer
machine
is a
that dries
machine
clothes
that dries
by
clothes
spinning them round
by spinning
very quickly.
them round very quickly.
Very good. Okay, so that's the end of our revision. Let's have new word. Okay,
Okay.
repeat. Slim.
Slim.
Very good. Okay, listen. Slim is an adjective which means to become thin in an attractive way. For example, I think most people join gyms mainly because they want to become slimmer rather than because they want to get fit. Let's practice. Do you think most people join gyms mainly because they want to become slimmer rather than because they want to get fit? Do you think most people join gyms mainly because they want to become slimmer rather than because they want to get fit? Yes or no?
Yes,
I think most
I
people
think most
join
people
gyms mainly
join gyms
because
mainly
they want
because
to become slimmer
they want to become slimmer
rather than because
rather than, rather than
they
because
want to get fit.
they want to get fit.
Very good. Next, repeat role.
Role.
Very good. Role is a noun, which means the character played by an actor. For
Mm,
example, if I were an actor, I'd like to play the role of a prince.
mm,
Let's practice.
mm.
If you're an actor, what kind of role would you like to play in a film? If you're an actor, what kind of role would you like to play in a film? If I were an actor,
If I am an actor,
or if I were
if I were
an actor,
an
I'd
actor,
like to play
I'd like to
the
play
role of.
a role of policeman.
Very good. Next, repeat replace.
Replace.
Very good. Listen, replace is a verb which means to take the place of something or someone else.
Mm,
For example, I think computers will never replace school teachers in the classroom.
mm.
Let's practice. Do you think computers will ever replace school teachers in the classroom? Do you think computers will ever replace school teachers in the classroom? Yes or no?
No,
I don't think
I don't
computers
think
will
computers
ever replace
will never replace
will ever replace
will ever replace
school teachers
school
in the
teachers
classroom.
in the classroom.
Very good. Next, repeat book,
Book.
venue.
Venue.
Very good. Okay, listen, book is a verb. To book means
Mm,
to make an arrangement or reservations in a hotel, restaurant, etc. For example, we must book a table before going to a famous restaurant because there are a lot of people who want to eat there. Venue is a noun, which means the place where an event takes place. For example, the venue of my sister's wedding was in a hotel. The venue of the concert was in a parking lot outside the mall. Let's practice. Is it always necessary to book a table before going to a restaurant? Is it always necessary to book a table before going to a restaurant? No, it isn't
no,
always necessary
it isn't all. It it isn't always
to
necessary
book a table
to book a
before
table
going to a restaurant.
before going to a restaurant.
Do famous actors, singers, or entertainers normally make their own arrangement with the venues they were booked to perform? Do famous actors, singers, or entertainers normally make their own arrangements with the venue they were booked to perform? No.
No,
Famous actors,
famous
singers,
actors,
or
singers,
entertainers
who are entertainers
don't normally make
don't normally
their
make
own arrangements
their own
with the
arrangements
venues
with the
they
venues
were booked to perform.
they booked performed.
They were booked
They were booked
to perform.
to perform.
They've nearly always
They newly
got
always
managers who
got
make
managers
their
to
arrangements
make their
for
arrangements
them.
for them.
We're gonna next anyway.
Anyway,
We're gonna listen. Anyway is an adverb. The word anyway can be used in three common ways. Number one, with the meaning of despite that. For example, I couldn't stand her. I couldn't stand her, but I have to invite her to the party anyway. Number two, in order to give another reason for something. For example, the phone is slightly too big for me. and anyways, it's much more expensive. Number three, in order to change the subject of a conversation or return to a subject that we were talking about previously, for example. So, anyway, as I was saying, we need to start planning for our holiday. Let's practice. Give me an example of anyway with the meaning of despite that. Give me an example of anyway with the meaning of despite that, please. His English is
Is
very
English
good indeed,
it's very good
but
indeed,
he wants to
but he
do
wants to
lessons
do
anyway.
lessons anyway.
Give me an example of anyway used in order to give another reason for something. Give me an example of anyway used in order to give another reason for something. I think they're
I
too
think
young to get
they're too
married,
young to get
and
married,
I'm not even sure.
and and
I'm not
and
even sure.
I'm not sure
Well, and
even
I'm not
I'm not
even sure
even sure
they really love
they really love
each other anyway.
each other anyway.
Very good. Okay, give me an example of anyway used in order to change the subject of a conversation or return to a subject that was being talked about previously. Give me an example of anyway used in order to change the subject of a conversation or return to a subject that was being talked about previously. So, anyway,
So anyway,
after the film,
after the
we
film,
decided to go
we decided we decided to go
to a club.
to grab a book.
Very good. Okay, so now let's move on to reading.
Okay.
Okay, our reading is at stage 10, paragraph page 823. Okay, and the last headword was logical. Start at page 824. When we use models in this way,
Oh, okay. Which models can express the idea of a property? The model should and ought to can express the idea of a property. Give me an example, please. They just said on TV that it ought to be nice and sunny tomorrow. Which models can express the idea of perhaps? The models may, might, and could can express the idea of perhaps.